Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Stories. Today we are in conversation with a very young, talented artist, Aditi Anand. Aditi, welcome to the conversation. I'm quite excited to be having this conversation with you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
And before we dive into the questions with you, for the benefit of our listeners, let's do a quick introduction. Aditi is an illustrator, author, and printmaker. In 2024, she graduated with distinction from the MA in Children's Book Illustration at the Cambridge School of Art, UK. She has received several awards, including the V&A Illustration Award and the Binod Kanoria Children's Book Award. Her last two releases as an illustrator, What Happened to Grandpa, published by Penguin, and Forgetful Dida, published by Pratham Books, have been widely appreciated for their delicate exploration of themes like dementia. And I think another very important point in Aditi's intro is that she is my younger sister, my first cousin. And we Anand sisters are now collaborating on the book, the background you can see, right? The big book for kiddos, Ma and Pa, which again delicately picks up on the theme of gender equality and inclusivity for kids. And of course, I bring in the writing, and Aditi brings these words out through her art in a very beautiful and attracting way for the kids. So quite excited, Aditi, for our collaboration and for this conversation.
Yes. Likewise. And I'm so excited for the book. Looking forward when it's out in the world.
Yes. So let's dive into the questions, Aditi. Of course, I'm a proud sister here. And at such a young age, you've put just beautiful art out there. So let's dive into some questions now. So the first question that comes to my mind, Aditya, your work often explores themes like dementia, loss, and grief. And even with the big book, we are talking of a delicate issue like gender equality and inclusion. So, what draws you to these emotionally charged subjects, and how do you approach illustrating such sensitive topics for children?
Um, I believe that children, they should be exposed to full range of emotions, be it happy, sad, or even the difficult ones like anger or grief. I think that to some extent that can help introduce children to such themes and even help them understand the challenging situations and even build empathy. And I think like happy books and joyful books, they are very important, of course, but balance is required. And it's important for children to see themselves who are going through such emotions or going through such challenging situations to see themselves in the books and in stories. Um, and I feel that I do not know why I am drawn to these themes really, but I just feel very rewarding when I create such books. It gives me a sense that I'm contributing to an area that many adults they might shy away to discuss the same with their children. And maybe in the way I'm maybe helping a child navigate their feelings and emotions.
That's such a
And
beautiful thought.
thank you. And I it's tricky how do you illustrate or how do you convey such messages, especially in children's books, because they are quite heavy and delicate, as you said. But I often use simple storytelling. I use visual metaphors to make these complex themes more accessible. There are certain tools that I can use. You can use color to a way that helps you. You can use materials that might help you convey that warmth and comfort to make the subject more approachable yet very impactful.
Wow. And this is such a good point you brought across, Aditi. At times, we feel like we need to shield the kids and maybe present everything. Roses are red and violet is blue and sky is shimmering.
Hmm.
So it's very important to have these books on these delicate subjects also out there, but presented in a way that would appeal to a child. And the child is able to understand, okay, oh, this is what is being talked of in this book, or oh, this is the feeling that I may be feeling. So actually, kudos to the work you're doing. This leads me to my next question, Aditi. So your work also reflects your origins, because I've read both your books, Forgetful Dida and What Happened to Grandpa. It does have a little bit of India sort of undertones to it. So how do your cultural roots influence your storytelling and your visual style? And how do you ensure that these elements resonate universally? And also, this sort of,
Uh,
I link it to our book, The Big Book, as well. It's also based in India. We are talking about stories of five
mm.
friends who are based in India. So, so how do you mesh this thing together, your cultural root and just the universality of what you do?
Mm, mm. Um, my Indian origins, they obviously are a very big part of my visual storytelling and my visual language. I mean, growing up in India, you are surrounded by rich textures, you are surrounded by so many vibrant colors and rawness. And it was while I was studying in the UK, I realized how much I'm drawn to these Indian settings. And it was something unique that I could bring to the table. um, and I started appreciating India more. I realized it's very authentic, it's very raw, it has so much character that any other place might not have.
Right,
Um, and I was actually also concerned about how do I make these elements resonate universally. So when I got a chance to visit a children's book publisher in the UK, I visited their office, and this is the very same question that I asked them, that if I base my stories in India, will they sell internationally? And they only had one thing to say to me, that as long as the themes that you show in your stories are universal, the setting doesn't really matter. Um, the setting will only add an element of diversity, which is always a strength. So if, say, the theme is grief, grief is a very universal concept.
right,
But if the story is based in India, it only brings uniqueness and authenticity to the story. It won't take anything away from it.
right. Yeah.
Um, but I'm working on a book which will sell internationally right now. So
Mhm.
I hope it is accepted well. So we'll see how that goes.
No, but that's such a beautiful thought, because at times I think we just apply those filters of geography to art, which
Hmm.
may not be relevant. Like you said, it doesn't take anything away from art, or from your your body of work as an artist. And you're right, these themes, like be it grief or be it that feeling of being left out, like when we talk about in the gender construct of things, there are kids who may at times feel like, oh, let's say, if a girl wanting to do sports really bad, and she's like the
Hmm.
only girl in the group of boys, and she's being excluded or targeted.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a universal feeling and can happen anywhere, and that little kid doesn't even know, oh, why this, like, why is it happening? So it's very important to just yeah, bring it all out, and not just for adults, but even try to have these difficult conversations through, I think, books and all at a younger age, so that kids are also open in having those conversations and asking adults about these feelings. And at times it
Hmm.
happened with my daughter, your niece Aditi, when I was reading the book, What Happened to Grandpa. And she's like,
Hmm.
oh, that was a very profound question. She's like, oh, does this happen, like the old people, they go and then they don't come back ever? So because
Oh,
the book ends on that note, right, that he's
yes.
gone and now he's not coming back. So we had to take a moment, and then, okay, we were like, okay, we need to now answer this in the right manner. But this is so nice, she got introduced to this in such a subtle form.
Exactly.
And now
Exactly.
she's,
Hmm.
because these are universal things, right? Every kid at whatever age will have to go through these feelings. So having those, introducing these conversations helps. Perfect. So I
Perfect.
this leads me to another question, Aditi, that I've seen that you enjoy working with mixed media in your illustrations. Could you share your creative process and how this approach helps bring depth and emotion to your storytelling? And I think the way you answer this question especially would help some of our listeners who are inclined towards, like, making a career as an illustrator, or want to
Hmm.
join this line. So yeah, all yours.
So my creative process, it starts with a sketchbook. I always maintain, I now have a habit of maintaining a sketchbook to do observational drawing. It goes with me wherever I go. There's a bag with me which has a sketchbook and some materials. It's the place where the ideas basically originate. It's now like a visual diary for me, which I can always refer back to whenever I need to make new art. And there are so many ways that you can convey emotion through materials. Say, for example, I use soft pastels a lot, and they have a very gentle effect, so that can help evoke warmth and comfort. And colors also play a very important role. Say warm tones like red, yellow, that evokes a feeling of coziness and warmth, while blue can be used to show sadness. And I also try to incorporate everyday things in my art. Like I'll I'll take a newspaper and just tear it apart and add it in my artwork. And I just feel that it adds a little bit of authenticity to my art, and it makes the artwork it feel grounded in real life. I remember when I was studying in the UK, I used to take whenever I used to visit home, I used to take a pile of Hindi newspapers with me back to the UK so that I can use them in my art. And they were a little intrigued, like, what is that? And I used to tell them that's Hindi newspaper. I got them from home. So I think that adds a little bit of authenticity and uniqueness to my art.
Must say I loved both the books which are already out, both Forgetful Dida and What Happened to Grandpa. And I've seen your illustration with the big book. And yeah, they're just so warm. The choice of colors, the way just bring out the whole scene, it's just beautiful. And I think the best critique or the feedback is when you show it to a kid. So I've shown it to my daughter, and she's like, wow, Aditi Masi has made this is so pretty. And like, she loved the colors, she loved every page, she's looked at every illustration, every small doodle that you've made in the book, and she loved it all. Like, all the
Mhm.
characters, the way you brought them out to life, it's just
That's
wow.
the only validation I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah. Because kids are so honest, right? They'll just say without what they feel without any filter.
They have
So
no filter, exactly.
yeah. So
So
that's I got like the first review has been very promising, I must say.
good sign.
Yeah. So Aditi, you also are working on your debut book as an author illustrator. So, what has been the most exciting and challenging part of bringing your vision to life? And what message do you hope readers take away from it?
Working on my debut book, it has been very, very exciting. I started working on it 2 years ago on my MA as a project, and now it has materialized into something more like bigger, and it will be out in the world soon. So it's very exciting for sure. The book is on loss of a parent and how the other family members they grieve and they process the loss. Um, and the rewarding aspect how has been balancing the role of both author and illustrator, I would say. I never really envisioned myself as an author. I am not a great writer. I cannot write long, meaningful sentences, still cannot. But I think that sort of worked in my favor in children's books because I stick to very simple, short sentences and let the illustration do the rest of the job. So as an author and an illustrator, I kind of ensure that the text and the illustrations, they complement each other rather than overlap each other. So it's like, if an illustration shows exactly what the text is saying, one of them becomes redundant.
Right,
So it's so if I'm performing both the roles, I can have that balanced rhythm and I have that under control. So
right,
that has been very exciting. The challenging part has of course been how to portray the loss of a parent in a very delicate and a sensitive manner. That was quite tricky how to navigate. But I hope I did justice to the subject.
right.
Yes.
So, Aditi, tell me, this just got me thinking. So, before dabbling into fiction for kids, like with the big book,
Mhm.
you're aware I've published a non-fiction, Awakening the Rainmaker, again on the theme of gender equality in the corporate and like different job profiles. And that book entailed a lot of research. And even when
Hmm.
I was authoring the big book, though it is fiction, it I had to do a lot of research before
Hmm.
putting pen to paper. Now, as an author illustrator yourself on your debut book, did you see yourself also doing a lot of research? And if yes, like what kind of research? Because, at times people tend to say, oh, writing fiction is like so easy and it's just imagination and those sort
Hmm.
of things. I think to just give our listeners a complete picture uh, of the hard work or the grunt work that may go behind publishing children's book as children's book. So would you like to share your experience, the kind of research you may have to do before you started off writing this book?
Course. As an illustrator, of course, my research starts with a sketchbook. I was visiting home during one of my winter breaks from the UK. I was in India, and all my sketchbook drawings were filled of my home because I didn't want to go out because I only had 2 weeks in India. So I was just drawing my parents, my brother, and I think illustration part, that was the research. That was my research. And if you see the book, all the rooms that I have in the book are inspired by my home. As an author, the story changed a lot. It was actually inspired by something my mom said during my stay. She said that she wished she had learned knitting from her mother when she was with us, but now she can't because she's no longer with us. So that got me thinking that how a craft can help someone remember the one who's gone. So the story changed a lot. It went through a lot of iterations. For me, um, or I it, it starts with an image. Like for many people, it starts like as an author, you write the text first. As an illustrator, most of my thinking, it starts with drawings and images, and then I add text to it. So first, I made the book as a silent book. A silent book is a one which has no words. It just has a series of images, a visual sequence of how things happen, and then I added words to it. So
Right.
it took me, I think, 3 to 4 months to have a concrete dummy book ready with me. So it takes a long time for sure, and a lot of research.
Like you said, there's just inspiration in your daily life or just having that eye. It's yeah, I think this is also a craft as an artist in any field. That's actually
Hmm.
a craft to just observe things and make something out of it. Wow. So, Aditi, this leads me to our to the last question of this interview, and thank you so much for giving such candid answers so far, and just sharing your journey as an illustrator, author, illustrator, as an artist. So, I think this is again for the broader benefit of our audience. Um, Of course, like we are sisters, so I know you as like since you were born, right? And I know that you have excelled academically. Like for my listeners here, Aditi has been a topper through and through, and she was a topper in school. She attended a prestigious college like Lady Shri Ram College, where again she was thriving. So, what motivated you to take this unconventional path of studying children's book illustration? And what advice would you give to others who aspire to follow their passion despite traditional expectations? Because, as a matter of fact, I know Aditi, like both of us have been good in studies, and our parents have always thought that we'll go into traditional things. While I sort of followed that traditional path for a while, but I think you, from a very young age, just dabbled into something very different, which no one in our family has done. So, yeah, what was your motivation, and what's your advice to people who find it difficult to pursue their passion?
As a child, I was always drawn to art, but I never thought it could be a viable career option. And I think it's especially challenging and it's especially difficult if you excel academically, because the expectations that you have to stick to a conventional path, that's very, very strong. And I loved my college. I loved going to LSR. I did BCom honors. And I loved the people that I met there, but studying commerce made me very, very sad. I yeah, I think in my second year I knew this is not something I would like to continue. But of course I had to finish my degree, which I did. Um, then I think COVID hit. It was 2020, and I started um, illustrating and maintaining a sketchbook, and I found out that I started reading more, and I just could read picture books, and that gave me some joy. Um, so I decided to switch fields, and many people did think that I was wasting my LSR degree. My parents, they obviously they want the best for me, and they mean well, of course, but they were also understandably very hesitant. And it took a lot of convincing, but eventually they came around to some extent. They did. But I was also very privileged to have some support in form of my siblings, my cousins, and my friends. So I did have it somewhat easy. But the work that I do right now, it makes me very, very happy. Money is important, of course, and one has to be practical. And the monetary aspect in creative career, it's very unpredictable for sure. And the publishing industry in general, it doesn't pay that well. But right now, that the satisfaction that I'm getting from pursuing this field, they are outweighing everything else. And I stay at home, so I save rent. So um, I I don't have an advice per se for anyone. I just have some experience to share, and I still think of myself as a beginner. I'm still navigating the children's book industry, and it actually took me a very long time to call myself an author, illustrator, printmaker, because I had a massive imposter syndrome, which I'm glad that I'm somewhat over it. Um, but yeah, I think it's an incredibly fulfilling if it's incredibly fulfilling if you do something you like. Uh, you have that sense of purpose, which makes all the difference. And I mean, you have to be a little brave, you have to be a little selfish, and you have to make things happen for yourself because no one else will do it for you. And you can find like 1,000 reasons to not do something, but you just need one reason to do it and maybe one cup of chai. That, that's all.
That is such a beautiful thought, Aditi, and I think this answer just left me with so many, those punchy takeaways which would just stay with you. That you need to make things happen for yourself. No one else is going to do it, and there may be a
I'm sure I
thousand.
read it on Google, but yes, it
But
still
you say
stands.
it beautifully. It's like You bring it out beautifully. Yeah. And like you said, there may be 1,000 reasons to not do something, but you really need just that one reason to
Fun.
make it happen. And I feel like, wow, I think our journeys, especially when it comes to the field of writing or our love with books, though I am big time into like reading words versus you're big time into reading pictures. But yeah, the way somehow the way our journeys sort of have converged when it comes to books. We both know that both our siblings are not into reading, right? But they are far away from books. And look at us, like we are just trying to make, we drive that purpose from books. So, yeah, this was a very enriching and great conversation, Aditi. Thank you for making the time again. And yes,
Thank you
look
for having
forward
me.
to making the big book also a smashing success, like your other two books and like my debut book, Awakening. So,
I'm sure it will be a
yeah.
smashing success without any doubt.
Yes. And this is giving me so much joy just reading both her names, sir, like Aditi Anand, Nishtanand. I like
You know that?
the collaboration and the love vibe
Yes,
which I'm
very
getting
evident.
from this. Yeah. And also, Aditi, this just sorry, before we wrap it up, just one thought I would like
But
to hear one more pop, sort of closing thought from you.
hmm,
Or oftentimes, when it comes to even friendships, be it friendships or as sisters, especially, people tend to pit girls against girls. They're like, oh, there are these so-called cat fights. Oh no, these two people, if they're doing the same thing, they will not get along. That sort of a vibe is often talked about or is often sort of projected or highlighted, versus when it
hmm,
comes to men, there is that bromance. They're like, oh, men are chill and they're just high-fiving and that sort of a thing. Now this came
hmm,
out in my research for my first book as well. And even there are themes in the second book which where we cover these things, that oh, there's a group of friends where the girls are also standing up for each other and are there for each
hmm,
other.
hmm,
So
hmm.
have you observed this in your life and career so far, or you have seen women as cheerleaders in your life and you don't buy this narrative?
I I do not relate to it at all. I think women, I've only seen women as cheerleaders. All my friends that I have from LSR or from Cambridge, UK, um, I think they have nothing been, they have only been supportive throughout my journey.
Right.
And yeah, I've not never experienced it even once as of now in my life. And in my family too, I've all the support that I've always wanted. You are there, my other siblings. They have been the most supportive bunch of people around me.
Right.
So I think it's just a myth,
That's so true. I hope
stereotype.
this, yeah, stereotype, and I hope this message again reaches out to all our listeners as well, who at times may be doubting their, I don't know, just friendships or relations just based on gender, which I think would be a very sad thing. Yeah. So this has been great, Aditi. Thank you again. And yeah, have a good day.
Thank you so much for having me. It was
Yeah.
lovely talking
Yeah.
to you
Bye.
and catching up.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye.